Level 1. Hotel Housekeeper. At 10:47 p.m., the strip is still pretending the night belongs to the people taking pictures. Fountains rise. Casino doors breathe out perfume and cold air. A bride in sneakers poses beneath a tower she will never see again after breakfast. But you don't enter through the front entrance. You enter through a gray employee door behind the loading dock, carrying coffee in a plastic cup and your work shoes in a grocery bag. The shoes you wore on the bus are damp from somebody else's mop water. Nobody at the front entrance sees you arrive. That is the first lesson of Las Vegas. The bright version has a backside, and the backside is already working. You scan your badge, collect a radio that supervisors are supposed to answer, and receive a board with 18 rooms. 18 sounds like a number. Then you learn what 18 actually means. A checkout room can take 45 minutes. A stayover can hide a week of somebody else's life. And your last room is at the far end of a tower connected by 2 elevators. Somewhere beyond the wall, slot machines make a soft electronic weather. You're 24, renting half a 2-bedroom apartment near Maryland Parkway with your cousin and her 6-year-old son. Your Corolla runs hot through most of the summer. You keep water in the trunk and a folded job application under the spare tire. Marisol trains you. Her phone has a cracked screen held together with clear tape. She teaches you the rules nobody prints. Strip the bed before touching the bathroom. Check the balcony door twice. Leave a wet floor sign, and if a guest says something is missing, write the time, call the floor captain, and let the cameras talk. At 1:20 a.m., you find a child's plastic dinosaur beneath a bed. You place it on the pillow with a note. Found under bed. A man opens the door wearing a robe and 1 sock. That thing has been missing since Denver, he says. His daughter shouts from inside. For a second, the room feels like a small rescue. Then you look at your board. 17 rooms left. By 4:15, your back is burning. At 5:02, pale light reaches the windows you polished. The assistant executive housekeeper offers you a permanent overnight route and 75 cents more. You say yes before asking what it costs. It costs Sundays. It costs sleep. And it costs the ability to explain to your family why you're awake when everyone else is eating breakfast. 3 months later, a guest claims a diamond bracelet disappeared from a room you serviced. The investigation clears you. The accusation doesn't. After that, you begin checking every drawer twice. Because on the night shift, finishing the job isn't always enough. Sometimes, you also have to prove you were never the problem. And just when you think you've finally figured out what this job demands, at 5:37 in the morning, the restaurant manager calls housekeeping. A dishwasher hasn't shown. The breakfast kitchen opens in 23 minutes. Marisol looks at you, then at the elevator. You're not promoted. You're simply the person still standing. She hands you a hairnet, and that's how Level 1 ends. Level 2. Late night restaurant worker. The kitchen is hotter than the hallway and louder than the casino. Fryer smoke hangs beneath the hood. The ticket printer spits paper like it has developed a personal grievance. Your new shift is listed as 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., but the real shift begins whenever the last drunk table stops asking for one more round. You are prep cook, dishwasher, runner, and emergency therapist for people who have spent 4 hours losing money beneath purple lights. At midnight, convention workers fill the dining room. At 2:15, the floor becomes sticky. At 3, someone orders 12 eggs, 4 burgers, and pancakes after winning. Derek runs the kitchen and keeps his phone inside a plastic sandwich bag. Tickets first, he says. Explanations later. A server can be angry and still be wrong. If a plate comes back, you find out whether the kitchen failed or the customer changed the story. You learn that a kitchen has its own weather. A quiet printer means danger because nobody is ordering. A screaming printer means danger because everybody is. You burn the first batch of bacon and accidentally put ranch on a plate marked "No dairy." Derek stares at the ticket. "Congratulations," he says. "You have met the ranch." You laugh harder than the line deserves. At 3:41, a man in a designer jacket folds beside the soda station. His friends say the man is fine because everybody has seen the man drink more. You kneel, call 911, and notice the room go quiet around the ice machine. The breathing is shallow. Derek moves the plates away from the crowd. The man wakes before the ambulance arrives, embarrassed and furious. He leaves a $10 bill for the stranger who held his head still. You put it beside the register because it feels wrong to accept money for being frightened in the correct direction. At 6:27, you finish. At 7:10, you report to a rental counter near the airport. Your Corolla stays parked. Your body does not. You need a controllable schedule. An advertisement on your phone promises exactly that. Level 3. Rideshare and taxi driver. You sleep from 8:02 a.m. until 1:34 p.m. Wake with your jaw clenched and open the driver app before your eyes fully focus. The promise is simple. Choose your hours. Keep moving. Make your own money. Freedom looks convincing until rent is due. You lease a hybrid through a fleet program for $389 a week, including insurance. The first hours belong to the car. You wipe fingerprints from the doors, photograph a scratch you did not make, and keep a phone charger beside a kitchen receipt. The old Corolla is too unreliable to trust. At 7 p.m., you wait near the airport. By 9:30, you have made 3 airport runs, 1 trip to Summerlin, and a $5.92 ride from a motel to a casino entrance less than a mile away. The passenger apologizes. You say it is fine. The app says it is not. You begin recognizing celebration and concealment. Celebrating passengers give directions loudly and sing at red lights. Quieter passengers watch the road through the window. One woman asks you to pass her hotel, admitting she is not ready to go upstairs because her boyfriend is there and the argument has not finished. You turn down the radio and drive to a well-lit convenience store. She pays the fare and says, "You were the only person who didn't make me explain it." The roads fill with luggage, spilled drinks, wedding parties, and people staring at bank balances. You learn shortcuts through construction zones and discover that the strip can be 3 miles wide emotionally, while only a few blocks across. At 3:16 a.m., near Flamingo and Koval, a rented SUV turns left against the arrow. Your passenger hits the divider. Nobody dies. The bumper folds, your wrist swells, and the app asks whether you can continue driving. You cannot. The lease company still charges the weekly payment. The adjuster says the claim is under review. You use a credit card to cover 4 days of lost income. The flexibility that sounded like freedom has no sick leave and does not care that your hand will not close. At a casino employee entrance, a security guard notices the brace on your wrist. "You should not be lifting luggage," the guard says. "You are not here to lift luggage," you answer. "You are here to watch the doors." The answer surprises you because it sounds like a decision. Level 4. Casino Security Officer. The uniform is black, your post is indoors, and your name appears on a badge instead of a dashboard. The casino floor has more cameras than windows. The carpet swallows footsteps. The air smells like chilled air conditioning, perfume, and the faint electrical heat of machines that have been running since before you were born. You receive health insurance and a schedule listed as 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., 4 days on and 3 off. It changes during conventions, holidays, fights, and celebrity arrivals. Training teaches evacuation routes, radio codes, report writing, and de-escalation. You learn never to call something a fight until you know it is a fight. Words travel faster than bodies in a casino. Your partner, Leon, carries a brass keychain shaped like a fire extinguisher. He taps it against the radio whenever the floor gets loud. "Keep your voice boring," Leon tells you. Boring gives people somewhere to come back to. At 11:53, a man in a designer jacket threatens a dealer and throws a glass. You escort the man toward the loading dock. Under white lights, the anger drains from the man's face. The man says the casino needs him, then asks for your last name. You give none of it. Leon watches the man's shoes. At 4:06, surveillance reports a man carrying chips from an abandoned table toward the parking garage. You intercept him near the escalators. The cameras say the chips are not his. The casino wants restitution and a trespass notice, not an arrest. You write the report while he complains that you are ruining a good night. You almost laugh. Nobody offered you a trespass notice against the SUV. Before the paperwork is finished, a pit supervisor asks whether you have considered dealing. Dealers receive tips. Dealers get seen. Dealers can move up. You look across the green felt at players who believe the person holding the cards controls the outcome. You apply the next morning. The security badge gives you authority over doors. The dealer's hand might give you authority over a room. You do not yet understand the difference. Level 5. Casino dealer. The training room has no windows, only green felt, a wall clock, and a camera high enough to make every mistake feel permanent. For 8 weeks, you practice chip cuts until your thumb aches and learn that a clean hand must look clean from every angle. The hourly wage starts lower than security, but tips can turn a slow night into rent money. You trade a dependable badge for a table and stranger's luck. On the graveyard shift, the same tourist returns every Thursday and tips only when the tourist wins. A regular tells you the hands look calm. You are not calm. Your rent, car payment, and mother's medical bill move through your head like numbers on a display while your face stays still. At 12:44, a player loses a side bet and accuses you of flashing the card. The pit boss reviews the footage. You did nothing wrong, but the table has already turned cold. At 1:17, a woman whispers that her husband has been in the bathroom too long. You signal a floor supervisor without stopping the game. At 2:39, a man places one final stack of chips on the felt. You need this hand to work, the man says. You deal. The man loses. The man does not shout. That makes the silence heavier. The man folds both hands and says, "Okay," as though the word can close the hole. You call security because silence can become an emergency before the body knows how to show it. The shift is strangely fun the next night. A retired teacher teaches you a card trick during a shuffle, and a birthday group tips the table with crumpled bills. For 15 minutes, the casino feels less like a machine and more like a crowded kitchen. Then a dealer makes a payout error during a packed Saturday. Surveillance freezes the table. The dealer is escorted away. You are asked to cover the spot while the pit boss investigates. Your hands move correctly, but your heart is loud enough to hear. Afterward, the pit boss offers relief supervisor training. The offer is not a ceremony. It is a radio call while somebody else is being walked through a door. You accept because you want to understand what happens before the floor becomes a problem. 2 weeks later, during a medical call near the valet, you watch a crowd gather around a person who has stopped breathing. You know the security response. You know the radio language. You know how to clear space. You also know that knowing the procedure is not the same as knowing what to do with a life. Level 6. EMT and Paramedic. The ambulance bay smells like hot rubber, disinfectant, and rain that never quite reaches the pavement. The rig's fluorescent cabinet lights turn every piece of equipment the same clean color. You leave the felt for an academy where mistakes are corrected with a marker, a stopwatch, and the possibility that somebody will be hurt if you remember the lesson too late. The starting pay is lower than you expect. You study anatomy, airway management, trauma assessment, lifting technique, and the discipline of never promising an outcome you cannot control. Carla, your partner, keeps extra socks in the rig and tapes a handwritten list beside the monitor. Gloves, oxygen, name. It reminds tired people that a patient is a person before becoming a problem. A resort call begins as chest pain and becomes a family argument. A motel call begins as a fall and becomes an admission that rent has gone unpaid. You carry a patient past slot machines while a jackpot bell rings above the stretcher. On one call, you misread a medication bottle and lose 30 seconds confirming the dose. Nobody dies. Carla corrects you without raising a voice. Back at the station, you stare at your hands. You do not need to be fearless, Carla says. You need to be careful while afraid. The line stays with you because it makes the work sound possible. After 4 years, you promote to paramedic. You earn more with overtime, but stop walking through a casino without scanning exits. Competence arrives as a habit of putting the right thing in the right hand. One night, a police officer at a resort scene hears your report and asks whether you have considered law enforcement. You almost say no. You have spent years learning to enter other people's worst moments without owning them. The officer says you already understand how the night works. You understand enough to know that the night is not one thing. You apply anyway. Level 7. Las Vegas police officer. The academy gives you a badge, a radio, and a list of things you may do only after proving that you understood what you saw. Patrol turns the city into a sequence of decisions. A hotel theft, a domestic call, a missing child, a crowd around a fountain. You begin at briefing under white lights, drinking coffee from a cup marked with your initials. You write a theft report, separate tourists in a parking garage, and close a lane around a crash while drivers complain about the detour. At 1:52, you respond to a hotel room where a couple has been fighting. The woman is in the bathroom. The man sits on the bed, calm enough to be dangerous. He says nobody needs to make this bigger. You separate them, document what you see, and wait for an advocate. The law gives you tools, not a sentence that makes someone safe forever. The meaningful setback arrives months later. You misjudge a radio update and send another unit toward a street already closed. Nobody is hurt, but your supervisor removes you from a preferred assignment and reviews the call minute by minute. You wonder whether the badge has reached the edge of what you can carry. The next shift, an older officer hands you the brass keychain shaped like a fire extinguisher. Leon has moved to days and mailed it with a note. Boring voice. You keep the keychain in your pocket. You stop trying to sound certain before you are certain. The hardest call comes near dawn, in a resort parking structure. A man has locked himself inside a vehicle. Family members are on the phone. The hands are not visible. The garage smells like gasoline and hot concrete, even though the sun has not risen. You take a position, speak slowly, and let the minutes pass without treating patience as weakness. You ask about the man's dog. You ask what the dog steals from the kitchen. The answer takes time. The door opens. The man comes out alive. Nobody applauds. The report takes 3 hours. At 8:47, guests carrying coffee and shopping bags enter the day you have just left. Years pass. You become a sergeant, then a resort liaison. You stop chasing titles because you have seen what promotion can hide. When a luxury property offers you a night operations position, the general manager says you understand every department that keeps a resort standing after midnight. You understand something else. You know what happens when nobody is looking. Level 8. Luxury Resort Night Manager. Now you enter through the front doors, but the front doors no longer feel like a reward. They feel like a wider entrance to the same building. Your suit costs more than your first month of rent. Your access card opens service corridors, surveillance rooms, kitchens, offices, and the basement where the old employee entrance still smells faintly of bleach. You manage front desk, housekeeping, food and beverage, security, engineering, valet, casino coordination, and every guest who believes I need to speak to whoever is in charge should summon a person with your exact job. Your shift is officially 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. You arrive at 9:45 to read handoff notes. A clogged drain, a dealer with a fever, and a kitchen short 2 people. You move without running. Everyone else may hurry. You may be urgent, but never contagious. At 11:18, housekeeping calls about a locked wallet. At 12:06, engineering reports a cooling problem. At 1:40, a driver says an elderly passenger is waiting alone near valet. You send somebody to sit with the passenger while authorizing a room change. You are not solving separate problems anymore. You are deciding which problem can safely wait. At 3:11, a VIP suite reports smoke. The alarm panel shows 1 detector, then 2. A host says the guest cannot be disturbed. You tell the host the guest can be disturbed, or the guest can be carried. You order an evacuation before the fire department arrives. The hallway fills with robe-clad travelers and confused children. A housekeeper points toward the service closet. Smoke is moving through ventilation. A worker noticed the first small thing before the important people arrived. The fire is small. The damage is not. You move guests to another tower, arrange water, authorize transportation, keep the casino floor from turning the incident into a rumor, and protect the evacuation route. A cook sends coffee. Engineering shuts down the motor. A former EMT checks a child's breathing. A former dealer keeps guests calm. At 5:06, the fire marshal clears the building. At 5:19, the day shift arrives with questions about occupancy. On the preliminary report, the person who first called the smoke in is listed as staff. You add the housekeeper's name before signing. You learn that every emergency has somebody who noticed it first, and that person is usually the least visible worker in the building. At 6:02, you walk through the lobby. The chandeliers glow. A couple takes wedding photographs. A valet wipes dust from a hood. Housekeeping begins another round. You have spent the night making sleep possible for people who will never know your name. You step outside at 7:14. Night workers move toward buses, employee lots, and cars with cracked windshields. Day workers arrive with clean uniforms and daylight in their faces. You stand between both worlds and hear the first service elevator begin another trip downward. You remember the plastic dinosaur, the hairnet, the hybrid, the black badge, the green felt, Carla's socks, the keychain, and the employee entrance. None made the night easier. Each taught you where pressure goes. You still keep a plastic room service key sleeve from your first hotel, folded around a receipt for coffee and crackers. It is not valuable. That is why you kept it. It reminds you that the city was built by people who arrive through the back, notice what is wrong, and keep moving before anyone thinks to thank them. The tourists will remember the jackpot, the skyline, the music, and the room with the view. You will remember the name on the report, the hand reaching for the radio, the door opening in the garage, and the first pale line over Interstate 15. You began responsible for one room. You ended responsible for the spaces between everyone else's rooms, the kitchen, road, table, ambulance bay, patrol, street, lobby, and decision that connects them. Las Vegas is still sleepless. Now you know what that means. It means somebody is carrying the city until morning. And tonight, that somebody is you.